Really major news right now. Ahead of his address to the nation, the White House is refusing to commit to accepting the results of the November midterm 2026 election. It comes as, according to Scott Nover of the Washington Post, multiple media stations are not going to air Trump's remarks. Both NBC and ABC say they will not air it live on their network. Now, they have streaming platforms where it will air, but on live on their network, it will not air. But the significant thing is that the White House is once again laying the groundwork to undermine the November elections. Caroline Leavitt would not commit to having Trump accept the results of the 2026 election. It's not surprising, right? He hasn't accepted the results of the 2020 election and even doesn't accept the results of some states in the 2024 election. And tonight is going to set the stage to try to undermine what happens in November, and it's already happening now.
We're watching tonight's presidential address and listening to what the president says tonight. But we're not going to take it live, as we've been discussing. That's because this president, sadly, has a history of misleading and in some cases simply false statements.
You guys do know that what happened last night has never happened in American history. To have a U.S. president make a major national address and news outlets say that they're not going to show it is insane. What did this man say, or what he was going to say, that made these news outlets so angry? I'm talking about ABC, NBC, CNN, MS Now. I don't understand it. And how can you guys bash a speech that hadn't even happened? They were given their input about this speech before he even made the speech. So if that's not censorship, I don't know what is. I don't know what is.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren.
And I'm Maureen.
Right, so in today's episode, you're going to be reacting to Americans as they are approaching the midterm elections, right? A lot of them are coming onto the internet to show their distrust for their president, claiming that he is setting them up for something. A lot of them are claiming that Trump might be hinting towards cancelling elections.
Right, and this happened right after Donald Trump gave his State of the Nation address, to which most media stations didn't air the event, right? And Black Americans have come onto the internet and they have expressed their concern due to the democracy that America has long enjoyed and what it signifies because these major news stations didn't air this State of the Nation address, right? Whereas on the other hand, white Americans are very concerned because they are worried that their president might cancel elections and they're not taking lightly to this situation. But guys, what is bringing all this concern? Let's watch what we prepared for you today and then you come back and talk about it. You can also consider subscribing if you're new to our channel, and let's watch and then you come back and talk about it.
So we're back to the 2020 election was rigged. I won. They lied. It was rigged. So we're back to that. Look, I tried to watch this whole, the whole 30 minutes of his, whatever the was. And so basically what he's saying is, if his party loses the midterms, they were cheated on. I mean, that's what he's trying to tell us, right? If they lose the midterms, the Democrats cheated. Because, I mean, he cannot change people's minds by his policies. He cannot do that because, yeah. So now he's going back to the 2020 thing that somebody cheated because he lost.
You're going to hear a lot of people talk about how dangerous Donald Trump's speech was tonight. And it was incredibly, incredibly dangerous. This is a wannabe dictator who has been leading an authoritarian takeover of our country. He is very clearly trying to lay the groundwork to rig the 2026 midterms because he's so unpopular, because he started an illegal war, because he's created an affordability crisis that is making it impossible to survive here in the US. That is his own fault. But I also want to talk about how dumb the speech was. I mean, We're talking about an 80-year-old billionaire in the White House who stays up all night posting AI garbage. He can't stay awake in meetings. He's made billions of dollars because he's the most corrupt president in American history. And then he still is prioritizing and taking the time to whine and cry about an election that he lost 6 years ago. It's insane. It is just so exhausting, and Americans are sick of it.
You know, I can't help but to think about the people who are waiting for November to come and who are holding their breath because they really feel like these elections are about to be the thing that changes the tides and get stuff back on track. And obviously things are so messed up and wild and people are so fed up that this big blue wave is about to come and we really about to give it to them. And we've been having these special elections that have been having some promising results in terms of Democrats going in and flipping seats and stuff like that, and local elections, statewide elections, etc. And I feel like it's a lot of people who's just like, if we could just make it to November, we're going to be good. But I really hope y'all paying attention to how these next few months, especially like the stepping stones to get to Election Day, how really warped, messed up, crazy, and chaotic they really about to be. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I don't think your president, the president of the United States federal government, I don't think he finna let these elections happen, or at least the outcomes and the results of them. They're going to be so highly contested and disputed. We are about to set ourselves up for some more unprecedented times for these midterms.
The scariest version of the 2026 midterms in most people's heads is a nationwide takeover. Tanks in the streets, a canceled election, martial law. But the realistic worst case is a lot less cinematic. It's localized disruption, then weeks or months of lawsuits over a handful of contested seats that could temporarily change who controls Congress. When we're afraid of something that we've never lived through, our imaginations run wild and jump straight to the darkest ending. Being scared isn't irrational, and I want to say that first. Last night, Trump gave a primetime address calling the election system broken and vulnerable. He showed no real evidence of his claims, and most of what he raised has been publicly known for years. And in 2024, more than 98% of election jurisdictions ran on a paper ballot or an auditable paper record to recount by hand. We can all assume his intent. Even a terrible speech like that hands Republicans a ready-made story to challenge results later. The idea is the right is setting up a takeover. So let's run with that and let's take those fears one at a time. So the first fear. He cancels the election or declares martial law and it's over. He can't do that unilaterally. Congress sets the election date and there's no martial law switch and no version of the Insurrection Act that lets a president cancel a federal election or rewrite certified results. And the terms that are up, those House and Senate terms still end at noon on January 3rd. He doesn't get to keep the outgoing members in their seats, although he may try, which leads us to another fear. Republicans just declare they won. But declaring isn't winning. A seat doesn't go to the loser and it doesn't stay with whoever held it before. It goes to the certified winner, who in most cases is seated while any challenge plays out. In the Senate, a senator-elect with valid credentials is seated first and investigated after. The House usually does the same thing during a contested seat, which leads us to this. What if they just refuse to seat the Democrats who won? And that to me is a very fair question because each chamber really is the final judge of its own members' elections.
Raise your hand if you think the 2026 midterms will be a change in tide of what happens to Trump and the brutality that's going on in this country. Is your hand up? If it is, take it and rapidly drag it across your face, making a slapping sound, because that's not what's going to happen here. They have been ignoring the laws and the rules that have been passed down in the courts this entire time. They only do what they feel like doing. Nothing is going to happen to him, no matter if the Democrats are in power, because who's going to be the enforcing body? The Department of Justice, Capitol Police, local police forces, the military, which isn't supposed to happen. You really need to ask yourself that question and quit thinking that voting is going to end this, because it's not. We're way past that time. You know how I know? All I got to do is listen to those bloop that I was just engaging out on that sidewalk. And you know what it comes to? If it's not God's laws, they're not interested and they're going to do whatever the they want.
So the major news outlets refuse to air President Trump's live speech addressing the nation about how we are about to do something about voter fraud, all the fake news, and everything surrounding what is going on in our nation. Now, if you guys do not think that this may not be the start of something bigger, since when does the President of the United States not get live coverage when they address the nation? On top of that, the news outlets were briefed that he was going to be talking about these topics. So I find it very funny, ABC, NBC, CNN, that you guys decide, no, we'll talk about it afterwards. We'll stream it online, but we will not give it live coverage. This seems very North Korea to me. Whatever side, I don't care if you're left or right. If you don't see how this is the start of something bigger when it comes to censorship and the respect of our leaders in this nation, you are very mistaken. I knew when I saw Spencer Pratt in the Oval that something was happening when it comes to addressing voter fraud. And people were like, well, I don't know why we're still talking about it. 2020 election is over, blah, 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 because it's still happening today. It's still happening today. When you have over 250,000 non-citizens voting in the American election, how do you think that that is okay? Please justify it. When you have illegal immigrants voting, how? So again, you guys need to watch carefully what's happening. What a concept.
Be watching tonight's presidential address and listening to what the president says tonight. But we're not going to take it live, as we've been discussing. That's because this president, sadly, has a history of misleading and in some cases simply false statements on what we've been talking about tonight, election security and integrity. Also, the White House earlier today said he would be showing newly classified documents, so we want to make sure that we have time to review those documents, talk to experts about them, contextualize whatever he says or shows before airing it. But if there is news, we will bring it to you ASAP.
Despite what the mainstream media would have you believe, he wasn't relitigating 2020. He was declassifying documents. The speech started out with him giving sort of a progress report of the nation's progress and then going into detailing the classified documents that he would be declassifying on whitehouse.gov. So the president was discussing election infrastructure, documents regarding foreign access to American voter data, and he put them online for you to read yourself. Instead of allowing you to see the information for yourself, major networks told you that they would interpret it and contextualize the speech for you. And if there was anything to report on, they'll let you know. Some networks cut him off mid-speech and said that it was false, that it was lies, without actually fact-checking. Democratic lawmakers like Gavin Newsom called him a, quote, mad king and invoked the 25th Amendment. Now, think about the video that I posted yesterday, how, the smear campaign works, where they try to get ahead of you. And what do they always do? They call you crazy to discredit you. So they're not saying we disagree with the president. They're not saying, okay, here's our fact check. They're saying, don't listen to him. It's all lies and he should be removed from office. What you're witnessing is not political disagreement. It's panic. Think about that for a second. They're reaching for the most extreme option, remove him from office for exposing vulnerabilities in our election systems. Now, rewind to 6 years ago when Hillary Clinton accused an entire foreign government of getting into the systems of her opponent. Did anyone ask for her to be removed from office? Did anyone suggest that she was automatically lying without actually fact checking it? Did you see the same sort of framing that what she was saying was dangerous and that she needed to be filtered? We didn't get that. Instead, it became a 3-year investigation with a primetime special counsel. Here's another deflection tactic that you'll see. Well, if there was something wrong with the election, how did Donald Trump win in 2024? If you watch the speech, which you should, on your own because you're a thinking individual and you don't need the media to think for you, that was never his claim. He was talking about vulnerabilities and access.
Happy Friday morning, everybody. It's about 8:45 a.m. I had plans last night, so I did not watch Donald Trump's speech when it happened. I'm going to make a separate video about that speech. It was boring. First and foremost, it was incredibly boring. He produced Nothing of substance. Evidence that he did produce proved that Russia tried to help him in the 2020 election, but we'll talk more about that later. My big picture takeaway from yesterday in its totality, between Todd Blanche's confirmation hearing, between Marco Rubio's speech about criminalizing the left, between Stephen Miller's speech about criminalizing and prosecuting as terrorists people on the left, combined with Donald Trump's speech last night indicating quite clearly that he and his administration are not going to accept the results of the midterm elections. When you combine those three things, you're going to have a DOJ, a deputy White House chief of staff, and a president who are going to criminalize, arrest, prosecute, and charge as terrorists anyone on the left who has a problem with Donald Trump stealing the midterm elections. And the overwhelming takeaway that I have from all of that from yesterday is that white people in this country who are comfortable need to start preparing themselves. They need to be ready to put their bodies on the line. White people in this country who are comfortable need to prepare themselves for being arrested and charged with crimes, and being held in detention warehouses for a period of days or weeks. That is what I think it's going to take to protect and preserve free elections for the midterms in November. They're going to classify us as terrorists. They're going to designate us as terrorists. They're going to designate us as members of Antifa. And if we are not out in the streets, they're going to get away with all of this. Simply showing up to the polls and voting, I don't believe that's going to be enough this time, because this administration is not going to accept those ballots. They're not going to accept those election results. And yesterday proved to me that they are going to bump everything up several notches significantly. And that's what we need to be prepared for.
We have some serious news this afternoon. In a new interview with Reuters, Donald Trump has been in his clearest form yet, saying that we should not have a midterm election. He was asked point blank about his prospects heading into the 2026 midterms, was upset and expressed frustration that Republicans may not do well and that the party of the president typically does not perform well in midterm elections. He said, quote, "It's some deep psychological thing. But when you win the presidency, you don't win the midterms. When you think of it, we shouldn't even have an election." This comes just 1 week after he went on stage in front of House Republicans and joked about abolishing the 2026 midterm elections. Well, that joke on stage has now turned into a serious comment he boasted about in an interview with Reuters. We will see if this takes in another form. It's also unclear how he would even do something like that. But this is what the president is now openly talking about right now. And people need to know about it. So spread the word, and as always, follow along for all the news you need to know about.
So guys, welcome back. Let us know what you think about the videos we just played here. The question I want to ask is, do you feel that our speakers today have the right to have these kind of concerns? Because what happens to a nation when its citizens clearly feel like they've lost all trust in the sitting president here, and elections are soon approaching, and the temperature, you just have to look at the temperature of the political environment in America right now for you to understand a lot of things. That goes without saying that there's still a lot of people who are still supporting Trump, those especially white Americans, the MAGA nuts, right, who feel like there's nothing wrong with the current regime and they feel like their president works just fine, right? But what happens to the majority of people who have genuine concerns, and what happens for a president to be able to restore the kind of trust people had, so to speak, right? People had in him. What does he need to do?
Right. And also we have to talk about another issue, the fact that major news stations in America didn't air his address. Specifically, CNN, NBC, and ABC have been called out for not airing such said address, right? And the biggest question I'm asking is, what do you as our audience think about this? Do you think this is a major cause for concern, or do you think it's another day, another big day as usual in America? Because here in Africa, specifically, I'm going to talk about our country in Kenya. Whenever there is a state of address situation that's coming up, or whenever our president wants to address the nation, our local news stations usually air that type of address, right? We have 3 major news stations in Kenya that such events should they be happening, they're required to air that event, right? So my biggest question today is, what does this signify or symbolizes? Because Americans have come, especially Black Americans, they've come onto the internet to express the fact that major news stations can ultimately decide not to air a presidential speech should be cause for concern, because where do they get the power to do that, and what does that ultimately mean for regular everyday Americans should they want the correct news to be put out there?
Right. And I feel like obviously we are all humans, but I feel like specifically a leader should be very leading a very straight life to a point where they can stand on a pedestal and be able to push laws, because they themselves, if you look at their background, it's because they are clean and they lead as a good example, right? But when one speaker was talking about how her concern is that he might get away with pushing the elections or just cancelling it altogether because they've been cutting the laws and they've been ignoring the laws altogether. I mean, I don't understand where they're coming from, because at the end of the day, who gets to decide who is a criminal and who is not? Who gets to decide who goes to jail, and what time they spend there, right? These are the lawmakers. But what happens if a lot of these big people who are making the laws for normal people, does it not apply to them or the rich people, right? Because the president has been caught in some scandals, and the EP files was a big scandal, and people were really demanding, before the list was even released, people were really demanding for justice and to know the truth, right? Because there's a lot of horrific things that EP has been accused of, right? And you're looking at that situation, and already he had felony charges that were still pending or looming over his reputation. So you're looking at that situation and you're asking, is the president above all other people who elected him and placed him on that seat? You know what I'm saying? So her concerns are quite genuine, and when you ask who is going to police the lawmakers, that's a genuine question, because even Democrats, as I normally say, a politician is just a politician, and the bad ones tend to protect each other, because whatever this one is being accused of, even them, they know they have dark spots on their reputation that they would benefit to protect each other so that all of this does not come out. You know, at the end of the day, who is a politician? A selfish person who is out to look for themselves, who's looking out for themselves and looking out for only the rich people that they benefit from.
Right. And all that said and done, now there are those Americans who think that yes, the midterm election will go through and it will be done, but they're a bit worried because getting them done is not the issue. The issue is maintaining peace after that is done, because
and fair elections also being achieved.
Exactly, and fair elections also being achieved, because most of them are worried now that Trump has started early on, before even the midterms arrive. He has started stating that the elections won't be fair, because he truly believes that in 2020 the elections weren't fair and someone somewhere interfered with them. So he has started insinuating that the midterms that are coming up will also not be fair. So people believe that this situation might brew into a civil unrest should this continue, because no matter what side wins, the other side that loses will automatically believe that they were cheated out of their positions.
And for that to happen, you clearly see where his headspace is at, and he also knows that he might not make it through, because at the end of the day, for him to become president, he had to to lie to a lot of people, including, guys, do you remember how he put Latinos into his pocket? Do you remember how he really went through America, even white people? I do believe that the percentage of people who voted for Donald Trump, especially white people, right now, a lot of them have changed their mind. He might
Not
still,
all of them, but a good
number of them have changed their mind. So he has good reasons to really be worried about this. He's not made a lot of people happy. You know what I'm saying? Because he attacked Medicaid, healthcare. You know, he attacked the social benefits Americans were getting, and most of them, it was proven that it was these kind of assistance were going to white Americans. So they're pretty much there's white Americans who still have a bone to pick with him, you know. So I guess this is gonna be a very interesting period, and we're just waiting to see how all of this is gonna go down and how what the midterms is gonna become of, you know.
Right. So guys, let us know what you think about this episode down on the comment section, and also consider subscribing if you're new to our channel. Do you think after the Trump presidency, America will ever be the same again, especially when it comes to elections and how people vote? Let us know down in the comment section. Also consider subscribing if you're new to our channel. We'll see you on our next episode.